Well, hello. Hi,
And it's so good to see you.
same you. I haven't seen you in like 30 seconds.
I know 30 seconds, but before that it was days.
I know I was
It
out for
was
a couple of days, but
days.
now I'm
You're
back.
back. Welcome back. You were
Thank
missed.
you. And
You were
also
missed.
welcome everyone else to our live. Welcome to Askable Adults Show, the show where we talk about all things sex ed, community, and sometimes we also talk about frameworks.
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 Hey,
But
wait a minute.
but before we go deep into our conversation for today, as always, we want to do our usual acknowledgments and recognitions, and that is that Black Lives Matter today and always.
And hey, can
Yes,
I add something in there?
absolutely.
Since we're going to be talking about frameworks, one of the things that I loved about today, which we're going to be talking about in a little bit, was speaking of Black Lives Matter, Black voices also matter. One of the things that I really appreciated was that quote that was shared on the webinar that we were paying attention to. That quote by Sonia Renee Taylor.
Mm,
And so I would like to just voice that.
yes.
And she had something to say about the world that we've been living in for the last 18 months or so and people's desire to go back to normal. And what she was quoted as saying is that we will not go back to normal.
Mm,
Normal never was. Our pre coronavirus existence was not normal, other than that we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return, my friends. We are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fills all of humanity and nature. So thank you, Sonia Renee Taylor, for those thoughts.
an amazing speaker in, oh my God, wisdom beyond belief.
Yes.
I shared a little bit of Sonia's uh, it's I'm getting confused because I was hearing it the video, but also I was reading it, the transcript. So I'm not sure how
Ah,
to say this. But it was a session talking about the topic that we will be talking today about collective impact.
yes.
And I shared a little bit, a fragment of her piece in Camp Safe Berks when we were talking about racial justice, and it was basically follow Black women, they know the way.
Oh, yes.
You remember
Yes.
that?
Yes, I
Um,
do.
I can absolutely share it again in our post when we finish, but it's amazing. But just in case, because I mean, we're here like people know who we are, but for those who don't know, my name is Jonathan Rodriguez. I use he, him, and L pronouns, and I'm the Youth and Health Resource Center coordinator for Berks Teens Matters. And with me,
My name is Nadine, and I use they and their pronouns. I am the community liaison with Berks Teens Matter.
and today we have been all day in a virtual training about collective impact. And as our resident expert, Nadine,
Uh,
um, what what is collective impact, and why are we taking this training?
wow. Well, first of all, I wouldn't call myself a resident expert. I would just acknowledge that maybe I've been around a little longer than some other people. And therefore, maybe I've been listening and learning a little bit longer. But no means would I consider myself an expert because it's always a lot to grasp, and I always feel like there's so much more to learn. But collective impact is really a framework that we aspire to be operating under or in the work that we do. And it is the idea of engaging collectively with the community in order to create systems change so that we can have some long lasting impact. And one of the things that I loved about today is that and we can go into all kinds of things about what all that means, what I just said. But one of the things that I loved about today, which I also love about and makes me passionate about collective impact, is the idea that it needs to be centered in equity.
Mm,
It really needs to be centered in the idea that everybody has the the ability to lead in different ways, that everybody um, needs to have a seat at the table, that we don't do services by doing things to or for people, but we best serve by serving with people and listening, really listening, and paying attention to and valuing the voices of the people who are most impacted by the issues that we are working to address and the areas where we are hoping to shift change so that everyone can be lifted.
and you saying that, and to me it's like, huh, that's like common sense. We all want that, but in reality it's not as simple. And that's why you know the collective impact framework was created to kind of to name this and create almost like a work plan on how to achieve it, because of course resources are limited. Services sometimes are duplicated. So how do we take all of these organizations and we do stuff to work for the community, in a way that that will actually make an impact, because it's going to be a
Yes.
collective
Yes.
impact, and something
Yes.
that they want again and again and again and again. Remember that this is from the community for the community. If there's no community, there's no need for any of these organizations, because there's no community. So we are doing
Mm-hmm.
it. We are part from of the community, and we do it for the community, listening to what the community needs
Mm-hmm.
and wants.
Yeah.
Because sometimes organizations may say, this is a problem and we have this problem, but the community is like, that's not really a problem for us. This is the problem that we're having. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a problem that the organizations don't necessarily want to address, because it's systemic, and
Right.
and it's ingrained in their own system. So it's like, oh, you want me to look at myself to see how I can help you? No, no, no. I,
Exactly.
I will tell you what you need. And collective impact says, no, we need to listen to the community, and we need to work with and for the community. And the community is not that we're gonna meet here and then we're gonna go and work. It's that we all are gonna get together, organizations, community members, etc., and we will work for to achieve a common goal. So
Mhm.
we find we identify a problem that the community is telling us that they have, and we work together to create a solution that can work and sustain itself through time and with efforts, or with the collective efforts.
Yes, yes, yes. And another thing that I really appreciated the importance of um, really paying attention to equity, like you were saying, like we have to change. The organizations, the agencies that are working to help guide the change also have to be willing to change. Because unless we are willing to change, we're going to have the same systems. And so we're going to have the same problems. We have to do things differently.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
I'm thinking. I was thinking about something, and I forgot.
Ah,
I
I
need to
know.
make those notes, Nadine,
I know.
that we talk about. Um, but I think there's a lot of unwillingness to change because for many different reasons. You have an organization, an agency, a
Mhm.
corporation that is working this way, and it works. But sometimes, to make an impact, and this is something that we've been discussing for a while, and in my mind, we all need to make sacrifices, um, because like I mentioned, for example, the duplication of services. Yeah, maybe you have two organizations doing mostly the same thing, but they're getting to different parts of the population. So yes, they are doing the same work, but they are reaching people that, without those specific organizations, will not be reached. Now, the importance is how, if we have two organizations doing the same thing, how we connect them, because if they're doing something here and they're doing something here, what happens with the people that are here? So we need to connect all those services so everyone can enjoy the same benefits, and that's where equity comes in. That was what I was gonna
Yes.
say.
Yes.
um, Something and this is not new, at least not for me, but something that they brought today was the example of baseball the baseball game.
Yes.
If y'all seen the example of equality, equity, and there was something else, but it wasn't justice. It was something else. Forgetting
Mm,
what it was. But equality is basically having exactly the same thing for everyone, no matter their needs.
right.
So everyone
Right.
has,
So
yeah,
if we all get a steak dinner, that's really great. Except for if I'm a vegetarian, that's not so great.
exactly. Equity is pretty much giving what everyone needs to be equal not to be in the same level, pretty much.
Yeah.
So maybe in that menu there will be steak and vegetarian, but the reality is that not everyone can have steak. They cannot afford it, and not everyone can afford being a vegetarian, and sometimes their bodies reject meat, so they can't eat meat, they can afford vegetable. So that's where justice comes through. And that's, I like equity, but I'm been thinking more about justice. So one cannot be without the other. um, because not everyone needs exactly the same thing to be in the same level. But regardless of being in the same level, if they have their rights but they are not treated as such, then there's no justice, so there's still work to do.
Yep.
And
And
yeah,
there is lots of work to do.
yeah,
There is plenty of work to do. And I like your, like, yes, we can have various organizations doing similar kind of work, I think that a lot of systemically, if we go back to the idea of systems and change and not going back to what we think of as normal,
Mm-hmm.
it's the thing about collective impact is to authentically collaborate with one another, I think. Um, and so our traditional way of operating, even in nonprofits, often is more of a competitive kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you do this kind of work and I do that kind of work, we might be both going after the same grant, and so we
Mm-hmm.
might be in a position of competing with each other.
Yeah.
And so it does take a lot of effort, a lot of work to get people at the table who are willing to work cooperatively in
Mm-hmm.
and collectively around a particular issue. And I also wanted to add that in terms of while we're trying to do things to support the community and make the kind of changes that the community feels are needed in order to raise everyone up, we also need to keep in mind, and this was sort of toward the end of the day to day, the idea that we are not going into the community as outsiders trying to fill up or fix people who are empty or broken. We
Mm-hmm.
are part of the community, first of all, and we need to build trust and relationship with a greater diversity of the community. And we also need to recognize all the gifts that people bring, all the assets that people bring, because everybody has things that they can offer, and everybody has things that they can give and contribute. We need to hear the voices of the people who are maybe struggling with particular challenges so that we can work together to ensure they have the resources, and we might have some ideas about what they need, but they also have some ideas about what they need.
Yeah.
um, and so again, it has to be a cooperative kind of effort.
Yeah. Yeah. In we are in, and not to change the topic, but I have a point. I promise.
I
Um,
believe you. I trust you.
oh, thank you. We are in Hispanic Heritage Month,
Yes, we are.
and that has me thinking of a lot of things. Uh, in taking, for example, taking the example of Berks Teens Matters, we are a relatively um, short team. We are composed of three people: the project manager, the community liaison, and the youth and health resource center coordinator. There's me.
See?
Uh, and we do, for example, we have a work plan that allow us to kind of like to guide us to what are we doing, what should we do next. And I always make a note of a challenge that it's always put in our work plan, and is that, well, before me it was mostly white folks who were,
It was pretty much all white women, Jonathan. Let's be honest.
and
Okay.
and then here comes me, and I'm the Hispanic person of the team, but and this is something that also my team has very, I think we've made it very clear, you know within us. I'm just one Hispanic person. That doesn't mean that I
You
understand
don't represent
completely.
you don't represent all Hispanic people
I don't
from all different Hispanic cultures. No, you don't.
exactly.
And you're a
Can
little
I
on the light side too. I'm just saying.
exactly. And but that is actually something very real, because not I am Puerto Rican, so I have certain a privilege that sometimes people tend to oversee. And it's, remember, me as a Puerto Rican, I was born as an American citizen. So can I go to a person from another country, another Hispanic country, and and connect with them just because we're Hispanic? Not necessarily, because if they are here in the United States, they have fears, they have struggles that maybe I don't necessarily have. Can I share some? Yes. Puerto Ricans are still, treated as second class citizens, but that doesn't mean that we don't carry a certain amount of privilege, and is that I don't have to think about being deported, and I need to have that very clear when I'm speaking to another Hispanic person, because maybe I'm just saying, oh my god, it's so difficult living in here, oh my god, the language, oh my god, this, and yeah, it might be true, but there's something that I will never feel, and it's that fear of being sent to sometimes a place that I don't know, because I wasn't because I came to this country when I was really young, or something like that. So I always try to bring that forward in our meetings. Yes, I can speak Spanish. Yeah, I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, but that doesn't mean that I know what, for example, my fellow Dominican siblings or Cuban siblings go through in their countries, because it's different. It's different. Is it worse? Is it better? I'm no one to talk about that, because I just don't know. I haven't shared that experience. So part of the collective impact is sharing, is kind of like disclosing a little bit, that experience, to be able to find connection to other people, to find that sense of community that sometimes we as Hispanic people need are forced to do, because we are all different cultures, and the only thing that unites us sometimes, well, sometimes it's the food, but other times is the language. So we can connect in that way, but that doesn't mean that we are really, um, we can be sympathetic or empathic,
Empathic.
but we need to know, that we don't share the exact same experiences, and we need to have that very much in mind. Were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, because we are a team of like 3 people in terms of the staffing of Berks Teens Matter. We do also have like a leadership committee
Mm-hmm.
who, not exclusively, but again, largely is a lot of white women. But we do have another male identified person as part of that group, and we do have some folks who are um, of Latinx background as part of that group. But I do think um, we need more engagement that way. We need much more presence and voices. We also need African American
Yeah.
and Afro Latino persons at the table, because the community that we live in, that is the community that we live in, and we need those voices. We need the values and the assets and the gifts that those people bring as human beings and members of our community, because those voices help inform how this work needs to be done, what is important about this work, how we can have an impact, what we might be able to agree upon in terms of, we do have, um, and have had in the past, our best diversity has been among our youth ambassadors,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think. And certainly we need those voices as well. We need those younger voices at the table, and we need to find ways to um, get some deeper engagement uh, in in the community that way.
And not only in my mind, not only we need them, but sometimes from a time I've been thinking, not only we need the youth and youth ambassadors, but I think it's very important for the parents to be a little bit involved, because again, they are teens like every other teen, and like I've always said, we can spend 365 days working with them, but they go to their house and maybe the things are different there. So if we can engage parents, we can promote and encourage those conversations, and that can really provide the confidence to the teens and the youth to, okay, I'm not only part of this organization, but I have the backup of my family, and I know that if I fall down, or if I'm in need of something, i I don't necessarily need to reach out to this organization, because my family is there with me, and they will be with me, and I know that they are maybe afraid, or maybe they allow me to speak because I can do it better, but they can be there holding my back and learning with me as we
Mhm.
go. Um also um you mentioned something, Nadine, about we need more black voices, we need more Afro-Caribbean voices, and that last part, that one to me specifically is very important, because I feel sometimes we tend to talk about Hispanic people and we just, it's like it's a box. Spanish here. And the
Mhm.
reality is that there is a lot of colorism, for example, in the Hispanic communities. So my experience as a light skinned person will not be the same as an Afro Caribbean person. You know,
Mhm.
I have cousins that their skin is darker than me. They will have experiences that are different than me back in our home or home country, and here, of course. And that is not speaking about the folks that were born in the United States, and they are, they are Hispanic, but they are also black. So it's like, who am I in this country, and who am I in my family? Where do I fall into between these two cultures? And I'm actually reading an article about that, about Latinx and Latine and Latina, Latino. So it's pretty interesting, finding your identity within this world can
Mhm.
be pretty challenging. So we need to this is why we need to have these conversations, because we can learn that when we talk about Hispanic people, who exactly are we talking about? Because where my mom lives in the South, uh, Reading, like south of Reading, um, and in her street there is a family from Peru. There's like three Puerto Rican families. There are like four or five Mexican families. There is an African American family. There is a white family. So you have in one street so many people that and they had to be forced to connect with another, because they're living in the same place. So what they do, they start sharing their culture, and they start finding that, oh, wait, what is that thing that you're eating? Oh, I'm eating this. That seems very familiar. Like, can I taste some? Oh, we call it like this. They start connecting through food. That's why I said, sometimes food, sometimes language.
Food
Um,
can be a really good way to connect.
yeah, and sometimes, the other family will be, frying something or cooking something in the grill, and they're like, that smells so good. What is that? Oh, I'm gonna start doing my thing like your thing. And you know what? Maybe I will add this. What do you think? And they keep evolving. They
Mhm.
keep mixing each other up. I think that is truly beautiful, but they never lost their sense of identity. They keep it alive. It's just like
Yes.
they mix it up a little bit.
And that's for a minute there, I thought you were going to say, but they never save any for me in terms of
Well,
the different food.
I'm more.
But as far as the identity, first of all, I think everybody is enriched by the kind of um, connections that you're talking about. And that's very similar to what we want to do in collective impact and have all different voices and participation and perspectives at the table because the work is enriched by having all of that. And there was something else I was going to say about that, but I've lost it for the second. So I'm going to let it go. And when it comes back, um, I'll give you an update.
But
Yeah.
how do we connect this with collective impact? We need to connect with people. We need to connect with the people from the community, the leaders in the community. We need to stop thinking about the community in boxes. We kind of need to know what their values are, what their thoughts are about a particular topic. We kind of need to ask, and we need to
And listen.
listen. So how
That's
do
part of the
we
reason we do this, right? I
exactly?
mean, has been a way to try to connect with the community, especially during this last. We've been doing this over a year now,
Yep.
out of these 18 months. So it's definitely a way to be able to do that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, no, but that's what we're doing. So it's always finding ways to connect, however it is, if it's virtually, if it's doing adopt a blog like next week.
Yes,
But
next week.
it's putting ourselves out there to listen to the community, and that will help us kind of like tune in to where can we be of service. um we're not saying that we're changing the world. We're not saying that I'm doing this, look at me. No, we're just like, where in the community, can I be of support?
Yeah, and I know that our topic around sexual health can be a touchy topic. I know I like to say because I know a lot of times I've been told and I know and my experience has shown me that for many families in the various Hispanic cultures that sexual health and conversations about sex can be touchy. I
Mhm.
always like to assure people that even though you think it's different, it's not all that much different in white families. I can't speak strongly in terms of African American families because I don't have as much experience there or exposure or knowledge. But I can say for white folks, it's not as easy as perceptions sometimes lead people to believe. However, I think a good place for conversations to start um, has to do with, let's think about equity and let's think about centering the people who are most impacted by these issues. So let's think about our youth and the world that they're living in today. And what are the hopes and dreams that they have for their futures? What are the hopes and dreams that the parents have for the future of their children? And from there, think about what we have to do in terms of starting and continuing the conversations around sexual health and healthy relationships, because that's a real important piece that seriously impacts people's lives going forward. And when those conversations don't happen, that can have negative consequences for people's lives going forward. And all we want to do is support health and healthy relationships.
We should be wrapping up, but since you said that, I want to share something very quickly. So as people may know, we at Berks Teens Matters, we are trying to develop a program for to address toxic masculinity. To do
Can you
that,
explain what toxic masculinity is just for people who might not know?
so toxic masculinity are those traits that people think that makes a man be a man, but the reality is that affects men, women, non-binary people, gender fluid people, agender people. Literally affects the society because it's rooted in dominance on another person. So it's pretty much saying, because I am a man, it carries the privilege of me being a man and me being the power to put people under my power, pretty much. And I say that also affects men because sometimes it puts us in a box that doesn't allow us to express, doesn't allow us to express in healthy ways, that pushes us to be hostile, to be hard, to be hypersexual sometimes. Um, so we want to and prevent us to create healthy relationships while promoting unhealthy relationships. And at the end, it can also, the conclusion could be, for example, domestic violence,
Mhm.
sexual assault, rape, all that. Because we're doing that, I'm also attending to other groups, and one of those groups was in Philly. It's virtual, so I don't have to drive. And I was allowed to, not allowed, I was invited
You were
to,
invited.
I was invited to talk about sexuality. In the experience it wasn't revealing, but it was surreal. The and we're talking about grown men. Like I think the youngest couldn't be less than 27 years, and the oldest I have no idea. The very diverse group of people. There were people from India, born and raised in India. There were African American folks, there were Hispanic folks, white folks. There were a lot of different people, Asian folks. And seeing the nervousness, but also the excitement, like, oh my god, someone will dare to talk about this, and it's okay. And you're telling me that it's okay, that I can unpack the things that I've been carrying all my life, the personalities that I had to create to think that I was enough, to have a relationship. Even it was pretty amazing, kind of sad, but so exciting because I think they needed to just have that conversation,
Mhm.
just to have a an honest conversation where no where they were allowed to giggle, when they were allowed to laugh,
Yeah.
when they were allowed to say things that they've always wanted to say. And it was just like, this is what we grew up thinking. And and the laughter on the giggles wasn't mocking the people. It was just
Mhm.
like, oh my god, I thought the same thing. It was outrageous. Now that I'm grown, oh my god, how, why haven't why can't we have these conversations outside of here? And that was this challenge. I was like, well, you can. And today I make you an agent of change. So go to your friends and talk about a movie or a series when something outrageous happened, and you were like, "Did you? Is this real? Do you think this is real? Can we talk about this?" And connected with sexual health. We had a conversation about climate change during that conversation. and how sexuality is also involved in that.
You want to say a little more about that before we sign off?
Nadine, that's gonna be for another show.
Okay, that's another show.
That's
Okay,
another show.
that's good.
But it's just see how sexuality can take you to another topic, but also how another topic can take you to sexuality, and it's okay.
What I'm thinking right now is just this idea, going back to how we started, that we don't want to go back to what we considered normal. We live in a culture that puts a lot of things in boxes. And if there's one thing we've been learning in recent years, and maybe can continue to learn, is the idea that intersectionality is all over the place. It's not just with ourselves and our identities, that we're not like a single something. I'm not just like a white person, but I have other aspects to who it is that I am.
Mhm.
And likewise, all these kind of subject matter things that we put in these separate little boxes, like the environment, like maybe our careers, like maybe our religion, like maybe our social interests and our sexuality. We put them all as if they're like separate things, but everything
It's connected.
interconnects.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And it's in those interconnections that we can connect to one another.
exactly.
So let's unpack. Let's let's see what our intersectionalities are, and let's use that not to impose it, um, but to connect with people.
Yes.
But also don't use it as a, oh, we're the same. No, no, no. I can use my experience to learn from what you're telling me, and find a place where I can be empathic or
Hmm.
empathetic,
Empathetic.
empathetic, and see the world in your shoes, but knowing that that's not my experience. I'm just trying to connect with you.
Yes.
So I think that's all for today, Nadine.
Yes.
What, Nadine?
I think we can close with that. I'm just going to mention that we have lots of different shows on YouTube and on our Facebook, that help you have conversations about all kinds of things. So
Yes.
check it out.
Uh, yeah, and all of them are in playlists. So you just look for Askable Adults Live, and you can pick and choose wherever you want to start and whenever you want to finish. They are all there. You can check them out, and of course, you can always find us and join us every Tuesday at 5:30, either here or, well, here YouTube, here Facebook. No, I need to think about that. But with that, thank you
Yes.
everyone, and see you
See you
next week.
next week.